So if I have to answer the door, I'm just checking the Ethernet is working. Yeah. So we have this focus today where we're going to focus on periods of movement and periods of being a little bit more still and feeling the movement of our breath with us. So some of what we'll be doing is moving with our breathing. Some of it will just be moving. And then these periods where we're just a sort of bit quieter and we try and settle. So the first thing I'd like you to do is lying down, either with your knees bent or your legs long, and feeling the weight of your head on the floor. And you're going to let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. That's nice. And just very much easing your head from side to side. And so this is this familiar movement. And I think often when we think about movement, it's a way that we can release tension from our body. But we can also release tension when we're still as well. So from rolling your head, find a comfortable place to settle your head in the centre. And let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And just feel the length of your body resting on the ground. And perhaps before we start moving anymore, you could just be aware of, are there any places where you're feeling a bit stiff or creaky today? But also just a sense of your general energy levels, all of that. And then if your legs are long, you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And then you're going to fold your right knee into your chest. And what I'd like you to do here is we're going to do Apanasana with one leg. So you've folded your right knee into your chest. You're going to bring your right hand onto your right knee. So as you breathe in, you move your knee away from you. And as you exhale, you let your knee fold in towards your chest. So keep your hand on your knee. Don't take your knee so far away that your hand slides off it. So breathing in, the knee moves away from your chest. Exhaling, the knee folds in towards you. So it's not a huge movement. It's an opportunity to, that's it, Rebecca, keep the heel towards your bottom. Yeah, so it's just the knee moving. Relax, that's it, relax the foot. It's just the knee moving away from the chest. Good. And then back in towards the chest. So the same for everyone. If I can't see your foot, the foot is relaxed. I'm not doing anything. Just do this a couple more times. Breathe in, the knee moves away from you. Breathe out, the knee folds in towards you. Good. And then the next time the knee comes in towards you, keep it there. And you can hold around with both hands now, or you can hold around the back of your thigh if you prefer. And then let your left leg lengthen out on the ground. And once you've done that, you can roll your left leg a little bit on the ground if you like, or bounce the knee a little bit. Just use a little bit of movement to help settle that leg down. So this is another way sort of movement and stillness are related. We can use movement to help our bodies settle more quietly. So leave that left leg long on the ground and bring your attention back to your right leg. And what I'd like you to do now is keep your thigh close to your chest. Keep your knee bent, but start to bring the sole of your foot so it's more orientated towards the ceiling. So it's a bit like you're coming into a lunge, but on your back, if you can imagine that. So you can, and then see, can you catch onto your right leg? So it could be you catch onto your shin or your calf or your ankle. It might even be that you can catch onto your right foot. So if the knee is quite bent, doesn't really matter where you can catch, wherever's comfortable. And then have a few breaths. So this is where we're sort of settling in this lunge on our back. We're having a couple of breaths and seeing if we can just sort of settle and release as we breathe in and out. You could also vary this movement a little bit. You could let your knee turn out to the side a bit more. So you're still keeping the sole of your foot towards the ceiling. You're letting your knee turn out to the side. And then you're encouraging the knee to come down towards the floor near your armpit. It's not going to touch the floor. It might do, but I think it's unlikely. So this is a bit like when we're doing a lunge and we bring our hands onto the inside of our front foot. And just have a breath or two there. And then I say when it gets too much or when you've had enough, you're going to lengthen that leg out on the floor. And just have 2 long legs for a moment. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. You're right there, Rebecca. Yeah. You haven't got your blanket. Do you want your blanket? Yeah. That might be good, actually. Okay, so have maybe another cycle of breath with 2 long legs on the floor. There you go. And then bend both knees again. Bring both feet to stand on the floor. And then this time you're going to fold your left knee into your chest. And we're going to do the same things on this side. So we're going to start off with Apanasana on this leg. So that's when we have our left hand on our left knee. As we breathe in, the knee moves away from our chest. As we exhale, the knee folds in towards us. We just keep our foot passive and relaxed. So the movement's in the hip joint. Breathing in, the knee away. Breathing out, the knee comes in towards us. And this movement is probably even more about the breathing than it is about the movement. It's this opportunity to sort of slow down so that as we breathe in, the knee travels away. As we exhale, the knee travels in towards us. Just for 1 or 2 more cycles of breath. Good, very nice. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. And then you're going to finish with that knee folded in towards your chest. You can hold around it with both hands, or you can hold around the back of your thigh if you prefer. That's it. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave, and then you can lengthen your right leg out on the floor. Yeah, so that's keep the left leg relaxed for the moment, Rebecca. So come to a couple of times rolling or bouncing your long right leg on the ground. So we're just starting our focus, just trying to let the right leg, using a bit of movement in the right leg to just try to encourage it to settle and release. Good. Okay. And then when you're ready, you can start to bring your left leg into that sort of lunge on your back. So your knee stays bent, your thigh stays close to your chest. That's it. You're orientating the sole of your foot towards the ceiling. And you're seeing where can you catch onto your leg or your foot. So yeah, you can hold around the back of your thigh. You could try, can you catch your calf or your ankle? That's it, your ankle. And just notice, can you still let the knee come as close to the chest as possible? That's it, good. Even if you have to release your leg a bit, soften through your jaw. Open your mouth for a moment to check you're not gritting your teeth. And you can also then try letting that knee come out to the side a bit if you like. So you sort of turn the knee out to the side. That's it. Keep the sole of the foot towards the ceiling. Just a slightly different feeling through the hip joint. So the knee's coming out to the side. We're imagining the knee dropping down towards the armpit. So it's like that lunge where we've brought our hands onto the inside of our front leg. If you can think about being the other way up. Good. Yes, and then whenever you've had enough, release that leg. Lengthen it out on the floor. Good. You can roll your legs. You can bounce your knees. Just let yourself lie long for a moment. Lovely. So let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then we're going to do some, yeah, lovely, very nice. We're going to do some different movements on our back. Again, we're going to start with some movement, and then we're going to come to sort of a place of stillness where we're focusing perhaps a little bit more on our breathing. So now I'd like you to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And have your feet a little distance apart. That's very nice, good. And then start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So we're coming to this really familiar movement, and keep it comfortable, keep it easy. Doesn't have to be a big movement. Just to sort of find a rhythmic movement, a knees tip A little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. There's a sort of familiarity, great familiarity with this. We probably do it most weeks. And that familiarity in itself is a pleasure. You can just be doing something we're very comfortable with. And that hopefully makes us feel more comfortable in our body. And then from here, next time your knees come to the centre, just pause for a minute and then take your feet wider apart on your mat. So walk them until they're as wide as that narrow edge of your mat. And then come back to tilting your knees from side to side with your feet wide. That's it. And see how that feels. And sometimes that's nice. It's easier to take the knees down towards the floor maybe. So we might find we do a larger movement here. And now it's up to you how much you want to play around with movement, how much you want to come to a little bit of stillness. So from here, if it's comfortable, you can take your knees all the way down onto the floor. Yes, if you need a cushion, you're up there, Chan. Yeah. Rebecca, are you okay there? Yeah, so let your knees come all the way down to the floor on one side, and then let your head roll in the opposite direction. That's it. Good. And then have a couple of breaths there. Letting your knees drop down one way, letting your shoulder settle in the opposite direction. Feeling the movement of your breath through your body. So here in this sort of still, quiet place, we're releasing tension by allowing ourselves to settle. And that particularly happens with our out breath. We just let our body feel soft and we give the weight of our body to the ground. You could come onto the second side of this. You might want to do a little bit more tilting of your knees from side to side, or you can go straight onto side two, let your head roll in the opposite direction. And on that second side, have a few breaths. Good. And again, the same principle that we're just trying to let our body feel heavy, give the weight of the body to the floor. So there's that weight of the legs on one side, the shoulder on the other. So our head is rolling in the opposite direction to our legs. Good. And maybe just another breath or two on that second side. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. And when you come back to the centre, whenever you're ready, you're going to fold both knees into your chest now. And first of all, just when you arrive with your knees folded into your chest, just do whatever you want to for a moment. So, you can ask yourself, what do I want to do here? You can be really conscious about it, or you can just sort of be led by what your body wants to do. And it might be moving, it might be being still. And then what we're going to do here is some more apanasana, but with both knees together now. So if you bring your hands onto your knees, we'll try and do it 6 times. I always completely lose count. So let's breathe in, let the knees move away from the chest. Let's exhale, let the knees move in towards us. Breathing in, letting the knees move away. Exhale, folding the knees in towards the chest. So I think that's 2 times. So we're trying to do this 4 more times. Breathing in, knees away. Exhale, knees folding in. And carry on 3 more times. Breathing in, exhaling. Just let your breath flow through your nose. So unless you're feeling really blocked up with hay fever, and I know it's quite bad at the moment, breathing in, exhaling. And I've already lost whether we're at the end or not. So maybe just do 1 more cycle of breath. Let the breath come in, let the knees move away from you. And then exhale, let the knees fold back in towards your chest. And then if you like, you can take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a little shake out. That's it. And then once you've done that, you're just going to have a couple of quiet breaths with your knees folded in towards your chest. And I quite like to, when I do that, bring my hands just my fingers into that fold around the back of my knees, sort of between the calf and the back of the thighs. Or you could wrap your arms around your knees, whatever you like. And this is what I always think about this being, it's like we're doing child pose, but we're on our back. So we just let ourselves have perhaps 2 or 3 quiet breaths here. Again, in a sense, what we're doing here, we're being very passive. We're just allowing the breath to move through us. And we're allowing our body to settle in this posture, this position. It's rather nice. We could stay here for quite some time. But in a moment, you're going to make your way over onto hands and knees. And we're going to do some few hands and knees things. And again, we're going to be thinking about movement and stillness. Now, Rebecca, are you happy there? Because it looks like Rachel isn't coming, so you could move into the middle of the room, but you're quite happy in the corner. Are you warm enough?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Excellent. So come on to hands and knees, and you're going to start by doing some cat movements, okay? So starting with some movement, rounding your spine to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. Very nice. And seeing how these movements feel. And I suppose there's another function of movement there. So as well as releasing tension from our body by moving, and maybe it can inform us about where there is tension. So sometimes if we're not moving, we don't know how we're really feeling. So in movement, it's much easier to feel ourselves. So rounding our back to the ceiling, dipping our spine down to the floor. We can also be aware of our breathing. So when are we breathing in? When are we breathing out? And of course, there's no right or wrong about this. And just a few more times doing those nice sort of rounding up, dipping down movements. And then what I'd like you to do is stay in your rounded up cat and have 2 or 3 cycles of breath there. So how does it feel to stay there and breathe? To let your head hang, to feel that your belly is really gathering up. That's it. And your tailbone is tipping down a little bit. So it'd be quite nice for the lower back or for the whole of the spine to stay here and breathe. So maybe one more cycle of breath. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then how does it feel to come into your dip down cat and have perhaps a couple of cycles of breath there? So let your spine move the other direction and then feel the movement of the breath through your body. Good. And then just come back to sort of a neutral spine and drop down onto your elbows. And I'd like you to do a little bit of tail wagging, just so we take the weight off our hands for a moment. So come and do a little bit of tail wagging and see how that feels. And again, I always find this tail wagging movement can be really helpful if I'm feeling tight around my lower back. And if that's the case for you, look back towards your feet. And that tends to lengthen out the lower back a bit and feel quite nice. Now in a moment, whenever you feel that your hands and your wrists have had a bit of a break, being on your elbows, you're going to come back onto your hands and you're going to move into a dog pose in your own way. So some of us already did a couple of dogs before class. So if you can remember how that felt, it would be interesting to see how does it feel now. And if this is your first dog pose, I was going to say of the day, of the week, then just, be gentle with yourself if it feels a bit creepy. So this is where some movement can really help. We can bend one knee, we can bend the other, we can sort of ease into some of those tight places by bending the knees. Not only releases the back of the legs, but it can help the shoulders soften as well. So perhaps another 2 or 3 breaths in dog, but keep a bit of movement going on. Unless those of you who did dog earlier are finding it really easy. And from dog, whenever you're ready, you're going to sit down into kneeling. And just give your hands a little bit of a shake out in kneeling, because we're going to come back. So we can shake the hands out, we can bring the backs of the hands together, give the hands a bit of a wiggle. So we're going to come back onto hands and knees, and we're going to come back to a bit of movement. And I want you to do a bit of rocking forwards and back, and you're going to alternate with your feet. So one time you rock back, your toes will be tucked. Then you're going to come forwards, untuck your toes, rock back. Okay, so on hands and knees, just this alternating of the feet. So from hands and knees, rocking your hips back, feet flat or tucked under, and just keep swapping the feet over, rocking forwards and back. Good. So obviously we're stretching our feet in different ways as we do this. So when the toes are tucked under, we're stretching the underside of the toes and the feet. When the feet are flat, we're stretching the front of the ankles. Now, in a moment, I'd like you to rock back with your toes tucked under. Well, the next time you go back with your toes tucked under, stay back. So stay back in that rocked back position. Can you let your shoulders soften a little bit? Now we're going to move into dog pose from here. So if your hands are very far, feel a bit too far forwards, walk them in a little bit. So I want you to try and stay in this rocked back position. Let your knees pick up off the floor. And then start to lengthen your legs out into dog pose. That's it, without letting your pelvis come too far forwards. Good. So you might come into quite a bent knee dog, which is fine. And you might want to do a bit of that sit, sort of easing into one leg. And then the other, letting the head go. Having a few breaths in this. Well, for some of us, the second dog pose. For some of us, it might be a fourth dog pose. Good. Very nice. And just seeing there's a sort of point when we come into dog pose and we feel that we're quite happy to stay there a bit longer, but it might not be yet. When you are ready to come down into dog, come down from dog, sorry, you're going to bring your knees down, you're going to untuck your toes, you're going to round your back to the ceiling and staying rounded, rock your hips back over your heels into child. And then settle in child. So we're coming back to a moment of stillness and just this settling. When we did our child pose on our back, we're the other way up now. How does it feel to be in child? Can we let ourselves settle here? Sometimes the knees need to be wider apart to make it feel more comfortable. Check where your elbows are. How does it feel to rest the weight of your body on the ground here in child? And feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave you. Not we might hope that child pose is going to be restful, but it isn't always. So, just bearing that in mind. So if child pose is feeling restful, let yourself have another cycle or two of breath there. We're then going to come into dog pose in that same way again, that rocking back. So it might be nice from child just to come onto hands and knees. Stretch each leg out behind you. Or as Rebecca was doing earlier on, adding in a sneaky plank pose. So if you're feeling that way inclined, so stretch each leg out behind you. And then we'll come into dog pose in that same way again. So hands and knees, tucking the toes under, rocking the hips back over the heels and just staying there for a moment, trying to let the shoulders soften a little bit. So what we want to do here is be resting through the arms, leaning through the bones of the arms, picking the knees up off the floor, and then starting to lengthen the legs out. But again, the knees might stay quite bent, easing into one leg, and then the other. So from this dog, in a moment or two, we'll be coming into a forward bend and up into standing. But if your dog pose feels that you could have a quiet breath or two in it, then do that. But you might not be ready for that. So don't worry if it isn't. It might be that you need to bend your knees and walk on the spot and move around, and that's fine. But yes, if there's that possibility. And from dog, whenever you're ready, we're going to be walking our hands in towards our feet. So we won't stay long in this forward bend because we're going to do some more forward bends from standing. So from this forward bend, Either sink into your heels, roll up into standing, or walk your hands up the fronts of your legs if your lower back is feeling a little bit creaky. And then, yes, let's arrive in standing. So, Rebecca, I will probably get rid of that mat at this point. Do you want the light on, or are you quite happy with that? Happy without the light on? No, that's good. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in standing is a bit more movement. This one where we're bringing our weight onto the balls of our feet and seeing how that feels. Yeah, so Rebecca, you might want to come a bit more towards the centre of your mat, possibly. Just, I don't know, I always find it helps me to feel a bit more spacious if I'm more towards the centre of my mat. So, sorry, just have a drink of water and then back to the programme of, that's it, weight onto the balls of the feet. Good. Just a very nice, a few times up and down. And we might find when we start to do these, there's more movement than we'd actually like. So I'm just thinking in terms of wobbling around. If you think next time you come up, you could be steady and stay there for a few breaths, then you could give it a go and float your arms up. That's it, good. Let the shoulders come down and soften. Very nice. So yeah, can we find a moment of steadiness? And we may or may not be able to. Good. See if you can let one more cycle of breath move through you. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. As you come down, sweep your arms down, come down into a forward bend, let your head go. Just give yourself a couple of breaths in your forward bend. Good. And then on exhalation, sink into your heels, roll up into standing. Perhaps give each leg a little shake out. We're going to do that same balance and do this mudra, Hakini mudra. So I'm just showing people on Zoom. We'll do that. We'll bring our hands into that over our head. We'll bring it hands down in front of us in that one. I always find it much easier to balance in up on the balls of my feet with my hands in this mudra at this point when it's my hands are in front of my chest. So let's see how we get on. So you can start, always helpful to start by looking at our feet, seeing the feet on the floor, and then stop looking at your feet, find a point to focus on in front of you. That's it, start to bring your weight forwards onto the balls of your feet. Very nice. And then let your arms float up. And then you're going to touch your fingers and thumbs together over your head. Good. That's it. See if you can make contact. And then bring your hands down in front of your chest. And I tend to keep my elbows out to the sides here. So thumbs and fingers all touching, hands in front of the chest. Very nice. And just see. So always kind of at this point, oh, it's a bit easier to balance. Good. Can't guarantee that. But it might be. See if we can have one more cycle of breath. So let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Good. Lovely. Come down. You can give each leg a little shake out. And then we'll do this sort of mini, it's like a mini balance where I'm cheating and holding onto the wall, where you're coming onto the top of each foot in turn. And you're going to do this twice. Okay. So straight, sort of, yeah, you're flipping onto the top of your toes. Maybe, yeah, a moment or two there. Do the same thing on the other side. So do, if you want to, like me, cheat by holding onto the wall, because we're really just lengthening out. So it is a little balance. So it's quite good if you can do it, not holding onto the wall. Good. And then come back and do the same thing on each side again. So slide your foot back behind you. That's it, well done. Flip onto the top of your toes, feel the stretch through the front of your ankle. And then do the same thing. I think that's both sides, probably keep going forever. Good. Okay, and I think what we have, yes, so I want us to do a little forward bend sequence now, where we build up a few forward bendy things. And yeah, so it's about movement in a forward bend. So the first thing we're going to do is just quite a simple forward bend. We're going to think about moving into the forward bend, looking down at our feet. And just carry on with that sort of trajectory, say that word. I'm bringing my elbows onto my thighs. You might like to release your arms to the ground. So just quite a simple forward bend. Make sure you're releasing your head. And then from here, we'll roll back up into standing. And then we'll just start to add a few more things in. So sink into your heels, roll back up into standing. So we're coming in and out of these forward bends. I think I've lost Kayla. Hopefully she'll come back again. Let's go down again. And this time you're going to do your sort of weeping willow movements, trailing your hands around the front of your feet once you're in your forward bend. So come back down into your forward bend. And start to sweep your hands from side to side around the fronts of your feet. Okay, now that's good. You've reappeared. I lost you for a moment. That's it. So in your forward bend, sweeping your hands around the fronts of your feet. Good. And just see how that is. And pause in the sense we're going to roll back up into standing, touching the backs of the hands together. So touch the backs of your hands together, start to roll up into standing, and you can take your arms all the way up to the ceiling. Just go sort of straight up for a moment rather than back. Good. And then you can release your arms. You're going to come back into a forward bend, and you've got a choice this time. You can do some more weeping willow, or you can go on into squat, or you could do both, okay? So it's a bit of choice of movement here. So from your forward bend, you could do a little bit of sweeping your arms around. You could also do a little bit of bending your knees more. So you're folding into a squat. And depending, if your lower back is feeling a bit creaky, you're right there,
yeah, bummed up nose now.
Yes, it could be that head has been quite high on the count, I think. So yes, if you come down into a squat, you're right there, Rebecca, you look like you're going to sit down in a moment. So if you come down into a squat, then we have to reverse that movement back into our forward bend. So heels down, sit bones up. Let's touch the backs of our hands together and roll up into standing. This time, as you trail your hands up the front of your body, you could come up into a standing back arch. So you could let your pelvis move forwards a bit, good, and let your gaze come up. And then again, come down into a forward bend. You can just do this once more. So you could do another squat if you like. You could do a bit more weeping willow. You can sort of shake your head out. Any sort of movement you like in your forward bend. So yeah, a little bit of sweeping the arms from side to side, back into the squat if you want. And then one more time we'll be rolling, from the forward bend, rolling up into standing, on into a sort of standing back arch. So again, just this sense of movement. So let a breath come in, you touch the backs of your hands together, rolling up into standing, taking your arms up and back. Good. Pelvis come forwards. Okay. You'll shake out, because now what I'd like you to do is contrast that with just going into a forward bend and staying there quite quietly and breathing, okay? And so it might well be, so quite often if I'm doing this, I quite like to come to this halfway one, my elbows are on my thighs, and maybe have a couple of cycles of breath here and then possibly go further on into the forward bend. You could rest your elbows on the thighs for a couple of breaths. You could then your arm and see how that feels. Sometimes it's quite nice to bend the knees a lot. So your chest is resting on your thighs. It's will be almost like the beginning of heading towards the squat, but you're not doing that. That's another option. You can, if you like, take your hands around the back of your legs and sort of catch one hand around the other wrist, or sort of catch your hands. That's another way to sort of be quiet in your lunge. Lunge your forward bend. You'll always come back to elbows resting on the thighs. See if we can have another couple of breaths here in the forward bend. Feeling very rooted down through the heels, that's really important, and the feeling of the head and the spine tumbling in, letting the breath leave. And then this time rolling and standing or walking Snap your hands up the fronts of your thighs. Back up into standing. Good. So arriving back in standing, and we're going to do a little bit more movement. So come on your mat so that you've got a bit of space to be stepping forward, that you can step forwards. And we're going to step 1 foot forwards. So we're stepping a foot forwards, and then we're doing a little bit of this rocking forwards and back. Good, that's nice. So again, this little bit of movement, and we're using movement here, very nice, to help ourselves settle. I always think from here, if we can let ourselves fidget and shift around, maybe there's more possibility of just settling. So now, settle down, have a look at your feet. So you want to make sure that you've got both feet pointing forwards, a little bit of sideways distance. That's it, Rebecca, don't be, I feel like you're on too much of a tightrope. Can we bring our hands onto our pelvis, perhaps have a big breath or two. Try not to move your pelvis. Yeah? So swinging the arms, shoulders, swinging with the, my internet is playing up. Is it the Ethernet? It's where I plug direct. There's problems with people. It's supposed to give better internet, but everyone seems to be a bit frozen. So we're all right there. So we're swinging our arms. Yeah, good. Sorry, I was fiddling with the Ethernet, everyone on Zoom. Good. Okay. Now, let's try, a couple more times swinging your arms, because obviously we're all frozen. Now, bring your hands into prayer pose at your chest. So have your thumbs on your breastbone. We're going to turn towards our front leg. Again, trying to leave our pelvis facing forwards. So we're turning our shoulders, that's it, shoulders, head, ribs towards our front leg. And there's only so far we can turn. When we've reached that point, on an exhalation, you're going to take your arms out to shoulder height. So reach out with your arms, that's it. Turn your palms up towards the ceiling. Let your shoulders drop. The elbows are sort of a little bit soft, a little bit bent. Good. Very nice. Lovely. Wonderful. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave, and then release that. Good. And then we'll step, a little shake out of legs, and we'll step the other foot forwards. So maybe start looking down at your feet a little distance apart, step the other foot forwards, come back to this shifting of our weight forwards and back. So we're using the movement to feel our feet on the floor. The more we can drop down into our feet, maybe the more our brain, our mind can quieten, perhaps the steadier we can feel. Good. So eventually you're going to let your feet settle. Have a look at your feet, check they're both pointing forwards. You can bring your hands to your pelvis. You can maybe big exhalation if you're on your own. And then a bit of swinging your arms. So swinging the arms, shoulders move, ribs move, head move, pelvis doesn't move. Good. Have your knees straight but not locked, if that's possible. Good. Very nice. Okay, wonderful. Ethernet seems to be working better now. Okay, so let that go now and bring your hands into prayer pose. That's it, at your breastbone. So I tend to have my thumbs right on my breastbone. It just sort of keeps the hands, out of trouble, keeps the hands put. Good, so turn towards your front leg again. So we're turning towards the front leg. We're trying not to let the pelvis move. Sinking into the back heel really helps. Let a breath come in as you exhale. Take your arms long and wide at shoulder height. Turn the palms up. Drop the shoulders, soften the elbows. Let a breath or two move through you. The breath come in. Let the breath leave. Let the breath come in. Let the breath leave. Good. Release your arms, a little bit of shake out. Right, we're going to do one more standing thing. So I've got my hair up. It's been really hot. So we're going to come back to stepping forwards with one foot, shifting our weight forwards and back a little bit. This time we're going to come on into a balance. So you've stepped your foot forwards, you're shifting your weight forwards and back. On the very creaky floorboards. And this time from this movement, we're going to see whether we can find a bit of steadiness in a balance. You're going to bring your hands back into prayer pose. So again, at this point, I find it really helpful to have my thumbs on my breastbone. We're going to bring our weight into our front foot and we're going to let that knee bend a little bit. And we're bending the back knee. So we're in this funny sort of exaggerated runner position. And then you're going to start to reach back behind you with your raised leg. And you're trying to let both knees straighten now and not lock. And maybe you're tipping forwards a bit as well. Good. And just see where you get to. Do we find a moment of stillness? And it may be a very brief moment. Well done. Amazing. Really nice. Fantastic. Brilliant. Really good. Yes, come and have a little shake out from that. We'll try the other side. So we're going to turn around again. Yes, I'll turn around again. So step the other foot forwards now. That's it, shifting the weight forwards and back. So you know what we're doing on side two. So I sort of think, well, that usually makes it a bit easier, but possibly also maybe we feel more anxious. Let's see. So bring your hands into prayer pose as you're rocking, thumbs on the breastbone. And then eventually you're going to bring all of your weight into your front foot. So we're going to let that front knee bend a little bit. We're going to bend the back knee with this sort of funny, exaggerated running position. And then we just start to reach back behind us, lengthening out the raised leg, sinking into the standing heel. That knee straightens without locking, tipping forwards a bit. Do we find a moment of stillness? Good. Just be very nice. Just be a brief moment. Well done. Really good. Come out, have a little, well done, a little shake out. Excellent. So we're going to come back to the back of the mat and we're going to move down in a moment through a forward bend, dog pose and child pose. And you've got a choice now of whether you want to be still or move in all these positions. So yes, exactly, Jan. So in your standing, you could be bouncing, doing a little bit of movement if you like. So yeah, we've got all these options. So of course, the first thing is standing. And also wiggling the pelvis is quite good. So if your lower back feels a bit creaky, a bit of wiggling of the pelvis. And then you could be still for a moment. You could be still for a moment in standing. If you've been moving around, self roll down into a forward bend. And remember, you've got resting on your thighs. There's releasing your arms to the ground. There's sweeping your arms around your feet. So just you decide once you end up in your forward bend. And all the movements of your breath through your body. Or do you want your body? And just give yourself another breath or two in your forward bend. And then when you go into dog pose, the same thing. It might be after all the dog poses we've done and the forward bends. And actually this is a dog pose you could come into and be a little bit quieter in. And just really feel the movement of your breath through your body. But it might be that you also want to move in your dog and bend your knees. Release your head. So you've got these options. Just really try to see what's right for you, what's right for your body now. And again, if you feel able to, have another breath or two in dog. And from dog, we'll come on into child.
when you're ready.
Now, child pose we often think about as this sort of quiet, still place, but you can do a bit of wiggling, sort of rocking of your pelvis from side to side, and it can be really nice and dog if the lower back is feeling tight. To sort of wiggle the pelvis from side to side. Again, it might be that you do a bit of that and then you settle for a couple of quiet breaths in your child. And it might be that you settle and it doesn't feel very settled and you come back to a bit of movement. So just give yourself another couple of breaths in child, either moving or quiet. And then we're going to take these same principles we've been working with this evening about sort of movement and then quiet settling into some sitting things. And you'll be shocked to hear it's not going to be any pinwheel tonight. We're going to start with sitting with our legs long and wide. So organise yourself on your mat however you'd like to be. That's a good idea.
Are you going to rest against the thing? Or?
No, I think be in the room actually for this. Because I was just going to, yeah, we're going to start. And in fact, we're going to think about movement in some of these. So the first thing I think maybe is leaning back on your hands and we can roll the legs. So that's one thing. And ultimately, when we're doing these sort of sitting positions like this long-legged one, we want to be on the sort of centre of the back of the heels if we're sort of settling there. But we can explore rolling across the back of the heels. We can also then sort of stretch into our heels and spread our toes. So that's when we feel all the muscles in the front of the legs engaging. And it might be at that point that you feel you can come and sit a bit more upright. Walk your hands in a little bit. Or some of you might even have your hands in front of you. So perhaps do that 3 times. Stretch into your heels, spread your toes, and then let the legs go. I'm already losing count to 3. So good. And then you're going to, I just want you to try and do just what sort of movement would be good if you were thinking about moving your body rather than your legs. So yeah, you can do a bit of swaying from side to side. I mean, you might want to keep your weight on your hands and that's fine. You can do a bit of turning is good. Yes, that's very nice, Sam, adding in an arm, these sort of side lengthening ones. You can do a bit of twisting. Again, just sort of be led by what feels good in your body. And obviously how we move our body affects how our legs feel on the floor, and that's when it becomes really interesting. Okay. We will have another breath or two here, and then there'll be a chance in a little bit to, if you want to stay a bit longer, more quietly in this wide forward bend. So, and it's not everyone's favourite, so you're going to have a choice when it comes to that point. Now, from here, we'll come on, you might want to lean back on your hands, we'll come on into cobbler pose. And so sometimes in cobbler pose, we're a bit more familiar with sort of moving around a bit. So, I mean, perhaps, yes, exactly, Kayla. So rocking, so either with our hands back behind us or holding onto our feet. This sort of side to side rocking in cobblers. Rebecca, it's quite good to have that blanket onto you so we don't get to. Yes. So yes, there's that sort of rocking where the legs are moving, and then you can do a bit of sort of circling. So this is where the legs are not moving so much. This is a bit what we do in pinwheel a lot, isn't it? Where we circle our body around. So our weight is sort of circling around our sit bones. And then we can, of course, do these sort of side lengthening ones where we reach up and over. Good. Just do those another couple of times. Good. Very nice. So again, if we're doing that, it's that sort of, yeah, we're trying to sort of keep this sort of, find this steadiness, quietness below the waist by moving the body. Let's just maybe for a moment lengthen your legs out in front of you and give them a little bit of a roll. We're going to then, if you come back to cobbler pose, you're going to come on into side sitting, and then you are going to slide your leg back. We sort of think it's going to be pinwheel, but in fact what I'd like you to do is lean onto your hand where the knee's coming, the knee that you would fold over in your pinwheel forward bend. And I want you to start to move your back leg. That's it. So this back leg is swinging back, and most importantly, it's coming forwards. And we're seeing how is it to bring our foot past the front knee. So this is taking us towards cow legs, but with quite a lot of movement. So the backwards, I'm just thinking the backwards is quite nice. This is all the cow legs is challenging. Good. Let's just do that a couple more times, and then we'll have the joy of staying in cow legs. So that's it. So if you're staying in your cow legs, you've got a few options. So in cow legs, if this foot has come all the way over the knee, we're coming onto the side of the foot. So Rebecca, see, yes, if you can be on the side of your top foot. That's it, yes, exactly, that's it. Now, you can always lengthen your bottom leg out on the ground. So if your bottom knee isn't happy, that's an option. What else was I going to say? I think all of you are quite happy, but this top foot could always come and stand on the other side of your knee. Now, I want us to then do a little bit of this sort of turning our shoulders. So it's easy in this one to keep your hips where they are. They're not going anywhere. But can we just very lightly sort of turn from side to side and swing our arms and try and use this movement to help us feel a bit lighter in cow. So obviously our legs feel very heavy and rather stretched, but can we feel sort of light in our upper body? I always find this just really helps me feel a bit lighter in general in cow. It's quite easy to feel a bit heavy and gloomy in cow. Now, we're then going to settle for a couple of quiet breaths. If you've had enough, do lean back. Oi. Sorry, it's Otto. On your bed. On your bed. On your bed. Jump out of cow legs. Very creaky. So, yes, I was going to say, in your cow legs, if you can bear it, have a couple of breaths, either turn towards your top leg or just settled in the centre. But if you need to come out, do come out and lengthen your legs out in front of you. But, is it possible to have a couple of quiet breaths in cow? I'm even thinking then that I want to have a little wiggle to help settle down. Okay, let's not push it too much. Let's lean back onto our arms, ease the legs out of cow. Give the legs a little bit of a roll on the floor. And then if you come back into cobbler pose, come into side sitting going the other way. Slide your top leg back. So we're going to come into, again, this sort of beginning of pinwheel. We're going to lean onto the arm of the knee that's sort of front leg, and then start to swing the back leg. And again, we can sort of enjoy that backwards movement of the leg, can feel quite enjoyable. The sort of cow part of it, maybe not so enjoyable. You're right, Rebecca, have you got enough space? You're bumping into the radiator.
I like the opposite. I like the cow bit.
You like the cow bit, you don't like the back bit. Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Good. So a couple more times. So sort of, we're almost doing like a semicircle with that leg. So really finding that range of movement for the hip joint, and then we'll stay in cow legs next time, and we'll just see what's it like on this side. Obviously we've got those options. So cow legs, we're thinking about the knees stacking up. You know, that's our intention. Little by little, perhaps, that's where we come to. We can always lengthen out the bottom leg, or bring the top foot to stand on the floor on the other side of the knee. Good. Have a little, I do think a little wiggle. I often think about you know, like a hen settling down on a nest here. So, and then a bit of, once you settle down, a bit of swinging your arms. Good. Again, this is just trying to sort of be light in the upper body. So if the upper body can feel light, maybe it can feel a bit less miserable, lower down. And then whenever you like, you can have, see if you can have a couple of quiet breaths, either turn towards your top leg, which is nice, or just in the center, settling down, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. Yes, and then whenever it's we've had enough, we lean back on our arms, we uncross our legs, we ease out of cow. Good. So what we're going to do now is you've got a little choice. You can either come back to sitting with your legs long and wide, or you can come back to sitting in cobbler pose. And I thought for cobbler pose, if you're doing it, you might like to do the one where you walk your bottom back away from your feet. And you can do a cobbler pose forward bend. So just choose whichever of those sitting positions is going to feel better to you right now. Cobbler pose or with your legs long and wide. And just perhaps, I'm not going to sit there, very creaky floorboard, just perhaps then have a little play around with about, you know, what do you want to do? What's helpful? Is it helpful to move? Is it helpful to sort of quieten and breathe? And it might be a little bit of both. So it's that really sort of tuning into your body. You're in your chosen sitting position. What's going to help you settle? It's not better to be quiet or better to move. If our intention is to be able to settle, to soften, what helps us do that? Is it a bit of movement? From that movement, maybe we can quieten for a moment. Maybe then we need to move again. And in both the quietening and the movement, there's this opportunity to release. Let the body soften. To allow the breath to move through us fully and freely. Good. So just really give yourself 3 more cycles of breath in your chosen sitting position. If you've had enough of this sitting position and want to change to the other option, you're very welcome to do that. So feeling your breath come in, feeling your breath leave you. One more cycle of breath wherever you are. And then just slowly making your way out, and it's probably nice just to lean back on your hands, and your legs were bent to lengthen them out, and if they're wide to bring them closer. And we are now going to bring our backs against the wall, and we're going to do a little bit of breathing. We're going to do a bit of breathing sitting up, and then we will take it into lying down. So yeah. So shuffle up against a wall or a sofa or a bed, and just, so that you can support your spine. And in terms of your legs, you could have your legs long and a little bit wide, not wide like they were before. You could cross your legs. You could be in, probably, for most of us, probably there's something, if we're doing a bent knee position, there's probably something more comfortable than cobbler pose. It might be half lotus, one heel in front of the other. Okay. And Any little wiggly movements you need to make, do to help you settle. Make sure your pelvis is right up against your support. Are you okay there, Jan?
Yep. I'm just going to give it.
Yes. Okay. And start by resting your hands on your thighs, closing your eyes, gathering your attention into your breathing. And just feeling the flow of your breath in your body. And for this week and next week, we're going to come to practicing some of our viloma breathing, which is our pausing breath. And in sitting here, we're going to see for a few cycles of breath, how does it feel to add a pause or possibly two pauses into our inhalation. And then we'll lie down and we'll try the same thing, adding a pause into our exhalation. So what I'd like you to do, just we'll do it for maybe 4 or so cycles of breath. So very simply, let your out breath leave. Breathing out through your nostrils, let the out breath go. And then start to breathe in maybe half of your in-breath, and then pause your breath for a moment, and then carry on breathing in the rest of your inhalation. And then exhale, just a long, quiet out breath, emptying out completely. And then again, breathing in a little bit, pausing, breathing in again. You might be able to pause a second time, or you might reach the end of your inhalation. And then let the out breath leave you again. And so for the next 2 cycles of in-breath, you're going to pause once or twice in the middle of your inhalation. So you let a little bit of breath come in, you pause your breath for a moment, very relaxed, and then you carry on breathing in. That either takes you to the end of the inhalation, or you might feel that you can pause a second time, and then breathe into the end of the in-breath. And then a long out breath. Just nice and relaxed. And in your own time, try one more cycle of that pausing breath, that viloma breath, pausing once or twice in your inhalation. And then just let that go. Let a normal cycle of breath move through you. So let your breath leave you. And let a breath come in without any pauses. And just for a moment, let your awareness expand outward away from your breathing and just feeling your legs and pelvis on the ground and your spine growing upwards. And then from sitting, you're going to make your way to lying down on your mat. And if you need you okay with that window open, Jan?
Yes.
No. Rebecca, have you your second blanket?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So yes, so settle down onto your backs, either with your legs long or your knees bent. And once we're settled, I'll talk you into a bit more viloma breathing on our backs. Rebecca, would it be good for you to have your lower legs up on the poofy thing?
Oh, that is helpful.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I need to get my bolster back down here.
It's my lower back that's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I remember actually.
Dan, are you okay then? Because you could put your lower legs up on the sofa if you wanted to.
I think I'm fine.
Okay,
As
good.
I am, actually.
Good. Okay, so we're going to do our viloma breathing in a moment on our out breath, and it's slightly different because we also pause before we exhale, so at the end of the inhalation as well as during the out breath. So I'll talk you through that, so you don't need to worry too much. So let's just feel a cycle of breath move through us. So let's feel a breath leave without any pausing. And feel a breath come in. So receiving an inhalation. And at the end of your inhalation, you're going to pause for a moment. And then you're going to start to breathe out. And you're just going to breathe out maybe half of your out breath. Pause your breathing for a moment and then carry on breathing out to the end of your exhalation. And then let a breath come in. And again, at the end of that in-breath, you pause for a moment. And then you start to exhale maybe half of your out-breath. Pause your out-breath for a moment. And then carry on breathing into the end of your exhalation. And then let a breath come in. At the end of your inhalation, again, remember you pause for a moment. You breathe out a little bit. You pause. Breathe out a little bit more. You might be able to pause again. And then carry on breathing out to the end of your exhalation. And then receive an in-breath. So I'd like you to do 2 more cycles of this. You're going to pause before you start to breathe out, and then once or twice during your exhalation. And just as much as possible, stay sort of soft and relaxed with this breathing. So it's better to be relaxed and pause once than pause twice, but be feeling more stressed about it. So breathing in, pausing, exhaling a little bit, pausing, exhaling to the end of the out-breath. And once more in your own time. And then just letting that go. Feel a normal cycle of breath move through you. And then let your awareness expand outward to a sense of your body resting on the ground. Perhaps noticing those points of your body in contact with the ground. Also, if you're feeling the air on your skin, any sounds, perhaps bird song, seagulls around. I'm going to ring the singing bowl in a moment. Just take your time, there's no rush. Speaking to beautiful evening, it is a thank you. Yes, Otter, yes, goodbye. Hi, thank you everyone.
Thanks, Cara. Have we got a class
Lovely.
next week? Can't remember.
There's a class next week, yes. And then I'm hoping